Good evening and welcome. I am Amarachi Ubani. Tonight, for the second time in 8 months, the Nigeria Customs seized pump-action rifles numbering 1,100 at the Tinkan Island port in Lagos. The Federal High Court orders INEC to proceed with the process to recall Dino Melaye by his constituents in Kogi State. Senator Melaye to appeal judgment tomorrow. The Defense Headquarters and leader of IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu, disagree over yesterday's violent clash between the Army and the pro-Biafra group in Abia State. And the U.S. state of Florida launches emergency rescue following damage from Hurricane Irma.
On business news tonight, Nigeria's Minister of Finance directs states and local governments to seek alternative source for revenue generation once the days of monthly allocations are over.
On sports news, Nigeria's home-based Super Eagles advanced to the group stage of the WAFU Nations Cup with a 2-0 win over Sierra Leone.
And from Abuja, non-teaching staff unions of government-owned universities embark on an indefinite strike as planned meeting with federal government is postponed till Thursday.
We begin tonight with the discovery of 1,100 pump-action rifles by the men of the Nigeria Customs Service in the Tinkan Island area of Lagos today. The arms were allegedly imported by a syndicate that specializes in smuggling weapons into the country. Authorities at the Customs Service told Channels Television News that the arms were loaded and concealed in a 20-foot container meant to carry wash-hand basins.
The early morning downpour didn't alter this scheduled briefing by the Controller General of Customs and some senior officers of the service at the Tinkan Island Command in Lagos. On display at the enforcement unit of the command are these assorted rifles, numbering over 1,000. They were concealed with toilet wares in a 20-foot container, said to have originated from Turkey, the largest arms seizure so far by the Nigerian Customs.
Through examination, revealed the following. 1. Georgia Magnum Black Pump Action Rifles, 600 pieces of them, and that is this one. Then this one. These are also 300 pieces. Then, of course, this one. So this also the quantity imported under this disguise 200 pieces. So if you add 600 plus 300 plus 200, that's 1,100 pieces of pump action rifles that were brought in.
In January this year, operatives of the Customs uncovered 661 pump-action rifles, which were later handed over to the Department of State Services, DSS. 3 people, a customs officer and 2 clearing agents were arrested in connection with the illegal importation. Before that, about 440 of similar rifles were confiscated in Lagos. While commending the effort of the operatives on their success, the Controller General of Customs, Hamid Ali, asked the officers to remain vigilant at all times.
From now on, thanks to the law, we will effect the law as it is. All shippers, all ships that brings in such goods, if they are on our port before we discover this, if we discover this while they are here, we will detain them, because that's what the law says. If not, we will block them from our system completely.
With 1 customs officer and a terminal clerk already in custody over this latest seizure, Nigerians now await further investigation to unravel the actual people behind the illegal importation.
To take a further look at this disturbing trend, I'm being joined on the News at 10 by a retired military officer and security consultant, Major General Cecil Isakagbe. You're welcome to the News at 10.
Thank you for having me.
As a retired officer of the Nigerian Army, what do you make of the seizure of such quantity of arms in Nigeria?
It is alarming and a great danger to our national security for the proliferation of small arms, and likewise, like firearms, is a great signal to national security challenge.
Could you explain further on that, please?
Pardon me?
Could you explain further on how this is a challenge to our security, the proliferation of small arms? I mean, how easily this actually came through the ports, and then now the customs have found it out?
Yes, these are very handy tools for the criminals, like violence, security challenges like armed robbery, kidnapping, and all sorts of terrorist acts and insurgencies. They are viable weapons for perpetrating these acts. And it's very, very important to start to arrest the proliferation of firearms because of the pernicious effect they have on national development.
Who do you think could have been behind this large amount of arms coming into the country?
Yes, this is traceable to the porous borders and the lack of equipment and adequate manpower to man our borders. And it also has to do with vigilance at the ports, land, sea, and the airports. And it also calls for strengthening our laws. For instance, the penalty for illegal possession of firearms, as captured in the Firearms Act of 1984, number 8, is clearly just 20,000 naira, or an option of fine of prison for a few years. So you have to strengthen the penalties for such acts and review our enabling laws to stem this tide. Again, you have to also look at how the various agencies operate. So this calls for a very strong interagency cooperation, and there must be a central element that coordinates these authorities. When these agencies do not cooperate, they tend to compete for relevance. There's a loophole for these things to come in unchecked.
I think the major problem here, General, is the punitive aspect of this, because we've seen this happen before. I mean, it's traced to somebody, and at the end of the day, we don't hear anything about it again. So do you think it is difficult to unravel the actual people behind these acts because they may be bigger than those who are being arrested in connection with this crime?
It is not difficult. First of all, you have to look at the sources of this weapon. Are they licit or illicit transmissions? And again, you have to also look at the way they come in. And for those who have been arrested, what has happened to them? You have to take loss appropriately and check these activities. If you do not trace it to the end, if you arrest them and you do not try them in law courts and get them punished if they are found guilty, it will continue to be a pervasive act.
Major General Cecil Sakaiwe, thank you so much for joining us on the News at 10.
Thank you for having me.
The Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has dismissed the suit filed by Kogi West Senator Dino Melaye, challenging the validity of the process of recalling him by his constituents. Justice Nnamdi Dingba, in his judgment, ruled that the Independent National Electoral Commission should go ahead with the recall process of Senator Dino Melaye, subject to the service of the petition, the full list and signatures of persons in support of the recall process. The judgment effectively terminated the earlier ex parte order made by another judge in the Federal High Court in Abuja, Justice John Soho, on July 6th, directing parties to maintain status quo. Senator Melaye, in a bid to save his seat, had dragged INEC before the Abuja division of the Federal High Court, seeking an order stopping the recall process.
That as soon as the plaintiff filed his action, that the recall process, the 90 days is paused. I mean, a stop is put to it, and that it starts from today. The balance, the rest of the 90 days, from when INEC started, commences from today. It was premature that they rushed to court, and what they wanted to do was to just come and then scatter everything, put impediment on everything. But I'm happy the court has clearly shown that it is not the responsibility of my clients and that of INEC to really serve the plaintiff with papers of this thing. If they want anything, then let them go ahead. if he's lucky enough to fault the verification at that level, or is lucky enough to ensure that the referendum does not succeed, then that is the end of the whole thing. But if he's unlucky, he goes.
Senator Malaye is not taking today's court decision lightly. He has described the whole process of his recall as an obvious persecution. The Kogi lawmaker says he would appeal the decision, though he believes the recall exercise is being instigated by political opponents who are bent on forcing him out of the Senate. Meanwhile, his lawyer, a senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Mike Ozekome, says his client will appeal the case, but has interpreted the court's verdict differently, saying the 90-day window starts afresh after INEC provides Senator Malaye copies of the petition. Mr. Ozekome was guest in our political program, Politics Today.
The court has said, in the spirit of fairness, in the interest of justice, Dino Malaye must be given a copy of the petition and all the attached annexures, accompanying annexures, including the signatories, so as to enable him prepare for the recall. And that until this is done, the recall process itself will not begin. That is why the judge also made an order that a fresh recall timetable with 90 days has to commence afresh. In other words, the earlier one is as dead as dodo. A new one has to recall. The executive has done its own by trying to recall Dino. The judiciary has done its own today, which decision will be appealed tomorrow. But the legislature is still watching, is still waiting.
Meanwhile, the Independent National Electoral Commission has moved swiftly on the court order on Senator Malaye's recall. The commission says it will obey the decision of the court by availing the Kogi lawmaker copies of the petition and will come out with a concrete decision this week on a timetable for the recall. However, INEC's National Commissioner, Mr. Solomon Shebi, contrary to the interpretation of Senator Malaye's lawyer, believes the order of the court today means the 90-day window continues from today, leaving about 70 days to go in the process.
We'll look at it critically, but as far as we are concerned, we are aware that we have just 74 days to the lifespan of the recall. It was put on hold exactly 16 days when we started the process, before it was put on hold by the court. That was on July 6th. And the court now says, I'm freezing time for you. You start from where you stopped. That's the way we understand it. I want to assure you that we will not do something against the law, number one, but I want to believe personally that what the court said today is not that we should start the process afresh. We should start from where it stopped on July 6th, and then the freezing time was just 16 days. Make sure, number one, that we give him everything the court has asked us to give him, which includes the signatories and then the whole schedule of the petition. We'll accord it with that. And we have been told to in a period not less than 2 weeks, we'll study all this and then we'll come down with a timetable very soon. But I want to assure you that before the end of this week, something concrete will come out about this.